Hello, this is Jeff. Welcome to this week's live event. 3 weeks, 3 more weeks, and we've had our first year of live events. That's pretty exciting. That's pretty cool if you ask me. I certainly enjoy them, and I hope you do too. The chat is open, so please feel free to chime in with whatever questions you have. I'm almost certain that if you are wondering about something with your voice, someone else is too. And as we get started here, I would say thank you if you've chosen to subscribe, and if you haven't yet, I hope you will consider doing so now. And off to the races we go. Hey, Striker and Con, hey, this is a new user ID I haven't seen before. Welcome. Shekdas, which is your favorite rock band. Good morning, Carlos Estrada, and the Restless Atlantic. Thank you very much. I'm glad that you're enjoying the videos. JC's Radiant Ray, good afternoon to you. Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. I must say too, I'm glad that this has worked out. I was concerned that YouTube was trying to not so subtly suggest I switch over to the other system, but it fired up really well. So I don't know. My favorite rock band, Vishek, it kind of depends on who I'm listening to in the week that you ask me. So I have some fallback positions though. Welcome, Sandra. Welcome. I fall back to Jeff Buckley. I fall back to the Beatles. Who else? I'm getting ready to do these do a couple tutorial videos, and so I've been listening to the Foo Fighters, and I have to say I'm really enjoying the Foo Fighters. So that's kind of fun too. I really love music. I love the process of making music, and consequently, I can find in almost anything I listen to, I can find something that I find interesting and instructional and enjoyable. But honestly, what I'm listening to right now mostly are, and I don't mean to sound immodest, but mostly my own compositions as I'm getting ready to start working on a record of my own. And so I'm really into the process, and I'm not listening to a ton of stuff outside of that, except what people need me to listen to so that I can work on material for the lessons and things like that. Hello, Fred from Philadelphia, and Altug. Good to see you again, as always. Glad that you enjoyed the posture video, Striker. That's awesome. Monsieur Mauvais, hello, and thank you. I'm doing better. I'm still not 100%, as you're about to find out. But I am getting there little by little by little. The Restless Atlantic, yes, I do Skype lessons. And really the best way to find out about that is to get in touch with me via the contact forms on either jeffrolka.com or voicelessonssf.com, and just say like, hey, I'm the Restless Atlantic, can you give me the info about Skype lessons? And it would actually be really cool if you told me a little bit about what's going on with your voice and what you're trying to achieve, just to kind of get the ball rolling and let me know where you're at. Because that's really what this is all about. Lessons with me are all about helping you have the options that you need to do what you are trying to do with the music that you're working on. Today is, how can I lift the soft palate while singing without pressing on the tongue and lowering the larynx? That's a really good question. There are lots of ways to do that. The most common way is the inner smile technique, if you've ever heard of that before. And that, it's funny to call it inner because the way that you get started practicing it is to have a really big toothy grin. Like that. And having all the outer facial muscle tension isn't really ideal. But if you make that face, you may notice a little, it feels like a squeezing or a nudging in the top, the roof of your mouth, way at the back. Another way that you can feel that sensation is if you make a noise like a pig, like a snorting. and you'll feel that muscle just sort of tense ever so slightly, and that can help you learn to control that muscle to lift the soft palate. Uh, I would address the tongue tension a little differently by grabbing it and holding it out, or laying it on your lower lip while you vocalize, and use a mirror, notice if it pulls back. And if it's pulling back, you may resort to having to grab it for a little while, so that those muscle engagement signals start to diminish, and you can begin to let it lie flat in the lower part of your mouth without having to tense it up so much or grab it. Vishek, thank you very much. That is very kind of you. I really appreciate it. Angel Daniels, honestly, I hope I feel better soon too. It has been a slow climb. And the worst thing about it is I feel like my hands are really tied when it comes to any amount of vocalizing, or even speaking at great lengths, because my voice is just so irritated by all the coughing and congestion. It's been a very, very congested cold for me, whatever this thing has been. Vishek, I believe me, I am really taking good care. I take really good care of myself. Like, I really do. Um, but for whatever reason, I've been very, very. I think it's the sleep thing. I've been a very restless sleeper for the past 4 years or so. Not getting really, really awesome sleep, and I think that has depressed my immune system somewhat. Um, but hopefully that's going to change. So we'll see. Does the soft palate rise when larynx drops? I'll take. Not necessarily. Um, we really want these tissues to be able to move independently of one another. That's what so many of the vocalization exercises are meant to help us achieve, is this independence of lift in the rear of the tongue with how the front and middle of the tongue are placed in the mouth, and how the nasal pharynx is oriented versus the soft palate. The exercises, especially on my channel, are meant to make you aware of how things are working, and then give you the option of how to slightly shift them. And we do that shift not so much by consciously controlling the musculature, but by listening to our voices, listening to how vowels align, listening to the resonance in our voice, and making those subtle shifts to make them line up the way that we want to. So not necessarily. Thanks for great videos. Your all-together warm-up helps so much. Brilliant. That's excellent, and I'm very, very glad for it. That's what they're there for, so please use them in good health. Fred, got a question. Excellent. I play out as a solo singer-guitarist, classic rock covers. I do a few Foo Fighters too. Been going over tons of your warm-ups. What are your favorites? 5 to 10 minutes before a gig thing. You know, that's a really good question. That's a really, really good question. And honestly, the answer to that is really, I would take 5 to 10 minutes of the one that's focused on diaphragmatic breathing, that has the breath exercises inserted in between the vocalizations. If you don't know if that doesn't make sense, like, check out the video and you'll see there's breathing exercises in between the bits that you sing. So you'll do like or even like if the exercise is, say, they kind of go along like that, and there's at least a couple that do that. What I need to do, what you have made me aware of, is I need to do like a 10-minute version of that. And that would be my favorite warm-up. But the diaphragmatic breathing warm-up for male vocals is 18 minutes. So what you might do is pick your favorite 10 minutes of it and do that. That would be my suggestion. But really, your warm up ideally is going to be focused on the range of the repertoire that you are singing. And the diaphragmatic breathing warm-up, I think, goes over the secondo passaggio for the tenor range, but not over the next registration event. So it tops out around A4, if I remember correctly. And so that may not necessarily, like a Foo Fighters tune, he is up there sometimes. I don't know if he goes beyond A4. I haven't delved that much. The tune I'm going to do is the Pretender, um, for my first tutorial. Um, so I don't know if he exceeds that or not in that video, but I'll find out, and then you'll have that to work with as well. How does low volume microphone singing like jazz differ from opera singing in terms of technique? Very interesting question. Um, Gosh, well, in one respect, the actual core basis of the technique needn't be entirely different. In fact, the technique that I am teaching on my channel is derived from bel canto technique, and my teachers have primarily been opera singers. So, um, so the techniques are universally applicable. How you utilize them in the context of the formation of your vowels differs greatly. So, for a jazz vocalist who needs a more vernacular sound, they're going to, they in theory can still use the same good engagement and airflow techniques, but they're not going to necessarily utilize as lowered a larynx position and as wide an aperture through the esophagus, because there isn't quite so much of an onus on throughput of airflow and overall resonance in order to achieve the nonlinear occurrences that opera singers achieve, which give them that big volume and also all of the kind of singer's formant resonances. I know that's a lot of technical jargon, but um, basically, if I were to simplify that as much as possible, um, a jazz singer is going to use a more vernacular sound to their voice and consequently isn't required to use as much airflow and overall resonance and volume as an opera singer might. For an opera singer that needs to have that kind of throughput to create the resonance, to create volume and projection in the way that they do, um, then they're going to cultivate a greater amount of release overall at the larynx in order to achieve that. I hope that makes sense. If not, we can certainly take it up more on sequencer, which I haven't mentioned in a while. And for those of you, that's the Facebook group that many of the people that are here are part of. If you want to get involved, just head over to Facebook and search for sequencer, and I'll okay you. It is a closed group, but we welcome all comers. And there's lots of great sharing, lots of good feedback. I haven't been on it as much lately. I've been kind of poking around a little bit, but everyone's been, talking amongst themselves, and it's been really, really cool. Beamer Ball. Hi, John here. Thanks for the great warm-up on YouTube. You're very welcome. Used it just today in my car, just before an audition. Awesome. Very cool. I hope it went well. Soroku, good morning to you. Missed being in the comment. Well, here you are again. Welcome back. I haven't seen you in a while, but it's great to see you here. Altug, really love the How to Lower Your Larynx videos. First time in my life I sang a D5. Excellent. Bhavya, I don't have a lot of breathiness in my voice, but there is a little breathiness. What should I do? Maybe check out the video on chord closure. That addresses breathiness, and there is another video on the channel, at least one or two. It says, I think if you search for how to sing without breath in the voice or how to sing without breathiness, those would be good places to start. Rachel Fitzpatrick, I find that I have a scratchy sound under my voice, even though I'm generally drinking lots of water. I don't oversing and I use good technique overall. Could you think of a reason for this? Thanks. My suspicion is that you have a little bit of a hyperglottic sound, like you're doing a little bit of a vocal fry, underneath the tone that's being produced. What I would suggest you do is like let's pick a warm up, any warm up. It doesn't really matter, but pick one where it's just using a 5-note scale like that, okay? And regardless of what's happening in the warm up, alternate between a lip trill and your vocalization. So do like a and see what happens. See if that scratchiness is still there. If it goes away, you don't have quite enough engagement appropriate to the range that you're singing in. Start in the thyroarytenoid dominant range, chest voice. Okay, but like make it super middle of the road. You know, like I started here. Of course, I'm sick and have been sick for a while, so that note for me right now isn't as low as it would normally feel. Um, so yeah, keep it like very much in the very middle of your range. Like I can do no wrong here. I could, if I for whatever reason woke up in the middle of the night, I could sing this range half asleep with one eye closed and my mouth, only partially open. That kind of range, like the super easy bit of your range, and see what happens. A little experiment. Today is how can I belt a B5 and is it safe? I'd have to know more about your voice to really even discuss that, but B5 is, and I don't know if you're male or female, for that matter, but B5 is beyond the secondo passaggio of even a soprano range. Yeah, I mean, so a soprano range vocalist would typically have their secondo passaggio around G5, G sharp 5. So that's typically beyond that point, and it's greater than a major second, which I would not recommend. Certainly, if you did it all the time, I feel like you would be at the very least risking vocal fatigue prematurely. At the very worst, much greater problems than that, which I'm sure you can imagine when, like we're talking nodes and things like that. So yeah, if you are a male vocalist, I would not recommend that. I don't even know that it's possible, quite frankly, because belting, by definition, is using the thyroarytenoid dominant singing voice rather than any other of the musculature that's around the larynx and exercises influence on the vocal fold. And B5 is so far outside it's over an octave outside the range of even the transition into head voice for lyric tenors. So it's kind of inconceivable, or certainly very ill-advised. So Roku, planning to try another beginner singing warm-up, but which exercise I should try next? Male. Again, have to know more about your voice. If you're really new, stick to the ones that are dynamic. Wee, 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 wee. If you've been practicing for a while, do the one that's connecting notes. That one I'm quite fond of. Wee, 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 where it mixes those two, because that's the direction you want to head in. You want to head towards melismatic phonation. Thank you, Rachel. I really hope I feel better soon too. This has really been going on for I think it's been more than 4 weeks at this time, and it's getting super old, and I'm finding it quite challenging to feel as if I have limited phonation capabilities. Angel Daniels, sorry to hear this. Get some rest, thank you. I meant your alto range warm-ups. All right, very good, very good. Today is how can I do riffs in falsetto? Practice accessing the range. The exercises on the channel that get into that range are meant to, they're meant to have an even phonation throughout the registers. As such, that is the stepping stone towards having the agility to be able to riff. Beyond that, you're talking about aural skills, being able to know what you want to sing and then sing those riffs. You might start by practicing the technique of accessing the range here in the videos, and then listening to some artists that are doing kind of riffs that you find cool, and learn those riffs, and then learn them. Pardon me. Learn them in your falsetto range. Striker Kane at Jeff. I have been focusing on the top of my range lately. I noticed that I have found the top around F4, A5, but as soon as I get to A5, I hum or know the sound, or this. I'm gonna say that the sound's not hum or know the sound successfully. However, when I open the rest of the register, it goes away. What practice in posture and breath control, intercostal muscles in the neck, and actually in the mouth and head can we focus on to get the best possible to hit that range? I practice every night on this and have successfully gone to a range and note I was told because of my natural voice was not achievable. I mean, you said that you notice you have I have found the top around F4 to A5. I mean, that's over an octave of difference there. And there's a lot of changes that occur in between those notes. I'm not entirely sure what you're asking, because, I mean, in what practice in posture, breath control, intercostal, I mean, obviously you want to have good posture. Breath control is related to the use of the intercostal muscles. The muscles in the neck, we preferably have them relaxed. I mean, people who belt sometimes are taught to, what's it called, anchoring, right? Where they snap that back. I would not recommend you do that. We want good lateral engagement and expansion. The engagement of the abdominal muscles is going to continue to increase all throughout that range. Activating the muscles in and around the neck, in my mind, risks encountering too much tension through those muscles, and if that inhibits the tongue root from being sufficiently released, then you're going to impede phonation around the larynx as well. There's any number of things, like there's a vast array of things that need to come together for us to be successful, I think, in that range. And what I've mentioned is just a few, and it's somewhat arbitrary without actually working with the vocalist in question. So a bit of self-evaluation is appropriate as well too. How is it around the secondo passaggio? How is it around the next registration event, which would typically occur around B4, C5? And then above that, there isn't in the Richard Miller studies, there isn't another registration above that. So you're just really looking for increasing airflow and maintaining resonance and release. Alta. Oh, Pro Audio Rev TV. Hello, everyone. Hello, Jeff. Hello, Giuseppe. Welcome, and thank you for joining us. Alta. If I drop my larynx low through the passaggio and add to it some mask, it sounds okay. What do you think? Sounds great. Yeah. What I would be interested in, actually, as a little experiment for you, is if you use a mirror or if you use your hand to lightly, we're not pressing, we're just monitoring. I would be interested to know if your larynx is actually lowering or if it just feels as if you're lowering it. Frequently, it feels like we're lowering it, but what we're doing is we're resisting the urge to lift it. And so it sends the brain mixed signals. But if you look in a mirror or monitor here, you may find that it's just staying neutral, which is great. If it is depressing slightly, that's fine too. And in fact, would speak highly towards your development if you're actually gaining that amount of release. And addition of the mask resonance is crucial in maintaining resonance from thyroarytenoid dominant singing to cricothyroid dominant singing. Well done. Madame the Prof. Thank you, Jeff. Take care of your health. Thanks for speaking slowly for Italians such as me. You're very, very welcome. Thank you. I have to admit I wasn't doing that intentionally, but I will keep that in mind during these events, and I will make sure to speak clearly and at an even pace. Thank you. Johnny Lipstick finally got in. Brilliant. Welcome. Fred, thanks, dude. You're welcome. Monsieur Maubet. Jeff, I believe the Improve Your Tone warm-up video, which lasts around 10 minutes, has those breathing stuff in them. Good tip. The hee-hees. Yeah, the video could be very helpful for that person. Yes, wasn't that Fred? Was that Fred? I think that was Fred Scavoli who asked that. I might be wrong, but yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. I really appreciate that. Tadeus, do you have any tips for countertenors? They seem to be a little neglected. It's always only about soprano, mezzo-soprano, alto, tenor, baritone, and bass. What about countertenors? Well, that depends on your school of thought. If you take a look at Training Tenor Voices, pardon me, which is the Richard Miller book, which I reference all the time, I talk about all the time, I recommend it. Training Soprano Voices is by him as well and is absolutely worth checking out. And again, please, don't take my word for it. Okay, I'm just quoting you what Richard Miller is saying. He does not consider the countertenor to be an actual range. He considers it to be a vocal affectation, and he makes very strong arguments to that effect. So I would suggest you have a look at that and consider it for yourselves. The reality is that most countertenors are, and again, it depends on how you're using that word. Some schools of thought are talking about a countertenor as it would equate to a lyric tenor from the Richard Miller studies. Richard Miller considers a countertenor to be a baritone vocalist who is bringing their cricothyroid dominant singing voice lower into their range. So that's why he considers it an affectation rather than an actual range. But and that's why you don't find them on my channel, because realistically the range is covered in the existing videos. Monsieur Maubet, I always hear that a warm-up should be 15 to 20 minutes. What would you say is the perfect length for a warm-up? A very interesting question. Oh, sorry, I just remembered I needed to, okay, right, I did it. Sorry, I was thinking about Greg from Greg's Life 7, and I answered his question from last week, so I'm good. Utter aside. 15 to 20 minutes. I think that your length of warm-up needs to be appropriate to what it is you are trying to do and where you are in your studies. So, if you've been sick, like I have been sick, 15 to 20 minutes, if I can even get through that, it's not gonna get me access to my voice the way I want it to do so. If I really, really had to perform, it would take me quite a bit longer than that if I could do it at all right now, the way my voice is feeling. And I think it depends a lot on the range that your repertoire is going to cover. If you're covering Bohemian Rhapsody, then you need not only to have access and very good access to a wide range of your voice, but it needs to be immediately accessible throughout the entire course of your performance. It's not like the tune sticks to a small tessitura, a small range of notes. So I think it's really going to vary from person to person. For a general, like, I'm just kind of knocking the dust off today, 15 to 20 minutes I think is quite appropriate. As you become more adept, you can probably get that lower even. Particularly if you're singing a lot, you know that you've got more time to just do some general singing before you have to do anything critical. But somewhere in there, but I really do think it varies. One thing I would say is that if you find that your warm-ups have to be 45 minutes, something else is going on. If you really find that you just don't feel warm after 30 to 45 minutes, then and there's no extenuating circumstance, like you haven't been sick, you haven't lost some sleep, something like that, then I would explore that more and try to figure out like why is that happening so long. My suspicion is you're not really getting engaged until much later in the process. Johnny Lipstick, I have a massive question. I have been getting a little discomfort in my upper area of the throat. I was wondering if that is related to bad technique. Really hard to say, and it depends on what area of the throat you're talking about. I mean, if it's up around the sinus area, then it's possible like that the resonance in your sinus cavity is dislodging a little bit of mucus and it's irritating your throat. It's possible that you have some little bad habits that are irritating your throat. All of that is possible. It's really difficult to say without hearing, but the thing you could do is like go in, like the thing I recommended for the person with a little bit of rasp in their voice a few minutes ago about alternating between lip trill and vocalizations. Try that and see if it persists. And if it's not as bad, like it doesn't hurt as much, then you might have like a little vocal fry going on, a little bit more vocal fold engagement that is truly necessary. And by focusing on your posture, engagement, and alignment, and certainly the balance of airflow and vocal fold tension, you might be able to work around that technique and get to a more balanced type of phonation for your singing. Sandra Earhart, is there a chance of you doing another agility video? Yes. The soprano vids on your channel are quite low and in a range that isn't really comfortable. Yeah, that came up in the comments. I'm not sure. It might have been. I think I remember a comment from you this past week. I'm not sure, but someone asked about it, and I was like, yeah, I need to do more agility. I haven't done an agility video in a while, but I will. Yeah, absolutely. Johnny Lipstick, the other question is about how to find the best way to produce sound without hurting your throat. Really, it relates back to the description that I mentioned a minute ago. We want a balanced phonation from which to start. We call that home base, if you will, right? And then from there, we can branch out and explore other resonances, other affectations to the voice. But we want to come from a well-adducted, balanced phonation where airflow and engagement are balanced, and then we can make decisions about what we want for our voice from there. And that the most important thing about that is that it gives you choice, right? It's about choice, so that if you want to have an affectation which you know is a bit edgy, then you can do that, but that's not your default mode of singing. And it's when we indulge in those edgy methods that are hammering our vocal folds day after day that we start getting into fatigue issues and problems moving forward. Yeah, that's what I would do. Get to the neutral zone. I was thinking of Star Trek when I said that. For all of you Trekkies out there. I thought it was a major. No, it's a minor. Is it a minor? There it is. Okay. Anyway, but I digress. Monsieur Maubet, have I ever thought about doing a quick tip video on dealing with nerves on stage? I have now, and I will make a note of it. Keep my note. I now am wise enough to keep my notepad here. I feel like I did do one, but I can't really remember. Though I don't know if I mentioned it. I know I mentioned it last week, but I'm working on a book. On stage. Performance anxiety is what I've always called it. So but I'll do a quick tip too, because the book is not going to be ready for a while. I mean, I would like to have it available around Christmas this year, but realistically it's probably going to be spring of next year that I'll be finished with the book. I'm first going to be doing a high range online teaching system that will be somewhere around summertime, July or August. That will come out, and that's going to be. I'm really excited about all this stuff. Quite frankly, the book is something that really has been a lifelong process for me, and I'm incredibly excited about sharing my process with you guys. And the teaching system, I'm very excited about the effectiveness, because it's really becoming clear to me that there's a lot of effective training. I'm meeting with people that are transiting the secondo passage that have never done it before, that are just using what's available online, and so I want to codify the system and make it available so that um, basically anybody who wants to do this can do it. Da 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 da! Karina, hello! Johnny Lipstick, I also have a question about countertenors. I was told I'm a tenor, but my very best tone is my higher range in falsetto. I'm confused. Well, it's just a matter of developing different registers of your voice. And that would make sense for a tenor, honestly. That area of our voices is typically more easily accessible than most other male fascias, and it feels better to us, typically. So it's just you get drawn to what comes most natural, and, that doesn't surprise me in the slightest. Greg, what happened with the scheduling this week? I don't know. It might have been daylight saving that happened, um, because daylight saving occurred. And if that's what you mean, like thinking that it was going to be 10 a.m., I don't know, man. I always go by 6 p.m. London time. Wherever anyone is in the world, it's 6 p.m. London time. And so in the U.S. went through daylight saving um, a week ago or something like that. Just a week ago, I guess it was. And that may be what happened. Karina, can you do several videos on bel canto singing techniques, please? I would love to learn that kind of beautiful tone. All of my videos are derived from bel canto technique. It's all in there. That's what this is. Alto. I listen to opera singers sing Dido's Lament. It is like they sing the words rounder, but in jazz words are so clear. I'm asking about this difference in between opera and jazz singing. Yeah, I call that the spectrum of intelligibility. Intelligibility being the how easy it is to understand someone. And the spectrum goes from here, which is spoken word. I am talking to you. Here I am on the spectrum of intelligibility. And it goes all the way to here, which is vocalise in opera. Like, think Rachmaninoff's vocalise. No consonants, only vowels. If they're singing a word, we wouldn't know what it was. If I remember correctly, they're only using one vowel, so it's an incredibly long one word with no consonants, so we can never know what that word is. And everything else falls in between. So maybe Tom York is here, because sometimes he's a bit, you can't really always understand him, right? But then, over here we've got musical theater, which is more highly articulated or enunciated, has a higher intelligibility than, say, a folk singer. But a folk singer is kind of like, sort of, you still want to understand what they're saying because they got a message. Folk music typically has something to say, has a message. Not that pop rock doesn't, but, they really want to know you. They want you to know that message. And then we get to choose. Jazz is maybe somewhere here-ish, not, I don't know, between folk and theater, hard to say. But we can also choose to be doing musical theater and then jump over here for a minute and then come back. We get to choose. Certain genres dictate that we typically adhere to a certain area, but we can always alter that in order to facilitate phrasing if necessary. I hope that answers the question. Michael. Hey, Jeff. So nice to see you again. Thank you. Just wanted to know if tongue twisters help with articulation. Certainly, they can be a lot of fun. Also, and again, I think it's in a couple of the videos. There's a that's a really good articulation exercise as well. The thing about articulation, however, is that we need to differentiate between articulators in language that help us to enunciate words and the actual tonal onset articulation, which ideally is going to be more an action of the solar plexus. And that's the difference between the and an exercise like the he, he. The H separates the vocal fold so that if we're doing it correctly, we isolate those muscles and get the articulation from the rectus abdominis muscles, and particularly around the solar plexus. Angel Daniels. I sing 6 nights per week, 4 sets in a club venue. I've found your gentle warm-up works so well and doesn't hurt. Very good. My concern, even though I warm up, I find myself slightly hoarse even every night after work. Easily done. If you're using a microphone, if you're using a microphone, then you really got to make sure that you've got a good mix so that you're hearing yourself adequately. If you're not hearing yourself adequately, you're almost certainly going to push to try to hear yourself and be heard, and that's going to create strain. That is a pitfall that is incredibly difficult to avoid. If you're not using a microphone, then you have to adhere to a comfortable volume and trust that those that are near you will hear you and those far away may not. The alternate there is to, have somewhat more of an open-throated approach to increase resonance and volume, but there you get a bit more of an operatic sound. The sound of the phonation goes hand in hand with the larynx position and airflow. So you can only slightly separate the phonation of that from the enunciation of it. But yeah, my main thing is that if you have a monitoring system, make sure that you're very, very comfortable with it. You get very, very good monitoring. It's probably unrealistic to think about using in-ear monitors, but if you could, that would be ideal, because then you will certainly be isolated from the surrounding noise around you, and that will further help you hear yourself and also resist the urge to push. In those situations, it's almost always related to pushing, and we have to find ways to avoid that until we trust our voices enough that we don't do it habitually. Very good, Zoroko. And I'm going to try and pick up the pace here. Hopefully, I do hope I will get to everyone's questions. Altug, it feels small and tiny as I sing in my high range. I mean the breath. Is that okay? Maybe. When we have good suspension with apagio, it doesn't feel like air is flowing out of us. It feels like we're just resonating and humming with sound. And the actual vowels, to me, feel quite narrow, even though the space is reasonably voluminous, at least appropriate to the airflow I'm creating. So, maybe? Striker Kane at Altug. Robert Callisto, what can I do to improve my tone? Well, you can check my video on how to improve your tone. That would be a step in the right direction. Balance your phonation between airflow and vocal fold engagement. Align the resonance of your vowels, in short. Giuseppe, my question for this week: when I record my voice, I still hear a classic sound, like classic tenor, in my voice. In which way I can maintain a good placement and have a pop sound? Address the vowels and how you're resonating them. Begin this process in the thyroarytenoid dominant singing voice. You may also find that a slightly more masked resonance may be appropriate. So feel, pardon me, feel the resonances come forward ever so slightly, such that you get a bit more brilliance in your sound. Record it and see. It will almost certainly sound unpleasant in your head initially. Record it and see if it's satisfying. Mask resonance has a tendency to sound and feel uncomfortable, not in like it doesn't hurt, but it feels kind of wrong or contrary to what you think would be right. but record it and listen to it. Again, it should not hurt. It's an even feeling. It doesn't hurt. There's no sensations at the throat or anything like that. It's just a different alignment of resonances in the oral cavity. Also, it's very hard to talk about singing as all sensations are subjective. You got it. And personal, and hard to explain these to someone else. This is why so much in my teaching, you'll hear me say things like, what does it feel like to you? What are your physical experiences? What's that feel like? Because it's your words that you will remember, and your experience of the physical sensation that you will remember and will help you recreate it consistently again and again and again. And, my role is to try to objectively ascertain if the phonation is correct. And once we've got good combinations of, yes, the phonation is correct, the singing is correct, and you've said it feels like a banana in an oil slick, then we say, okay, you want the banana in an oil slick sound. Now, I might press you for a bit more, kind of descriptions of the physicality of it. But if that's all you got, that's where we start, and we go from there. But you are absolutely right, Altug, and that is, at both times, paradoxically, one of the most fun things and the most difficult things about teaching singing, because it is so subjective and it varies from person to person. I had one client who was really into boxing. She was a boxer, and all the analogies were boxing related. Worked for her. It's great. Striker Kane at Jeff. JC's Rainy Ray at Sandra. Altug at Striker. JC Rainy Ray at Sandra. Greg. Hey, Jeff, can you talk a bit about the primo passaggio? Where does it lie for a baritone with the second secondo passaggio at E flat 4? And what change actually happens at the primo passaggio? Greg, not a lot really changes, but if we don't have good vowel alignment and we don't have good airflow, we really are risking sliding into a falsetto tone production at the secondo passaggio. So typically the primo passaggio is a perfect fourth below the secondo passaggio. So if your secondo passaggio is here at E flat 4, then your primo passaggio is around B flat 3, as it were. And the main thing is you want to make sure that you're coming into that area of your voice with good engagement, good expansion. This is where you will notice if your vowels are not well aligned, that they will start to get out of control on you. So let's say you're singing A to Ah. I bet, watch this. I'll go, that's right at my primo passaggio, middle C. So I'll go a little higher as I'm getting into my zona di passaggio and watch what happens to my nasty voice right now. That's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. You can hear I'm still staying on the vocal fold, but the resonance on the ah vowel is diminishing quite significantly as I'm trying to keep my voice well adducted, to keep the vocal fold touching. Last week, if I would have done that, this would have happened. And there the vocal fold is separating and I'm getting a bit of air. And breaking as I get further into the zona di passaggio. So I jokingly say that the primo passaggio is where our technique begins to matter. That's not entirely false. If we don't have good alignment and good airflow, we'll tend to get a falsetto tone production. Or if, like me, you've been sick for a while. So that's kind of what happens in there. Altug, is there a registration for the male voice at around A flat 4, A floor? For baritones, yes. That's going to be where you start heading into the falsetto range proper, as labeled by Richard Miller. Please note that in that range of your voice, falsetto will be subjective here, kind of glassy or smooth feeling, but the actual phonation will be full sounding. So it will sound like a natural extension of your voice. Falsetto, as we generally think of it as this airy, light, low volume sound, is when we're using that tone production much lower than the actual falsetto range or register of the male voice as it relates to that question. Striker Kane at Altug. Johnny Lipstick, is having a low larynx a bad thing? My teacher said mine goes too low. Possibly, yes. If you're pressing it down, particularly if you're pressing it down to try to sing low notes, that's just as bad as pulling it when you're ascending. Bottom line here, and I've got to hurry up to try to get everyone's questions in. We want to start with a neutral position with the larynx. We want then to have a neutral position that is released. In other words, we're not doing any kind of muscular action to keep it in place. From there, we want to cultivate more release so that it could perhaps be free to lower more if necessary or remain neutral. But it's about release. It's about having it adopt that position out of release rather than forcing it down. And this is why it can take so much practice and time to learn opera, because they're really cultivating this release, this depression. But that word isn't even appropriate here because it's all done out of release of the structures such that it responds to the subglottic pressure, engagement, and that then creates these really big sounds. Zoroko at Deus Robots. Callisto, is my voice ugly? Can someone check it on my channel? Someone might have a listen to that. At Robert Callisto. A bunch of people are going to check it out. There you go, that's awesome. Fred Scavelli. Thanks out to Monsieur Maubet for the video tip. I'll check it out. Very good. Zoroko BRB. Don't know what that means, but hopefully it's good. Greg's Life at Tadeus, Altug. Should we do pre-warm-ups, like singing silly words to find resonance, etc., to help prepare for the warm-ups? If you need to, of course. Yeah, why not? They can be fun. I think that so much about our voices, I feel, is about experimentation, being willing to try some things and see if it works. And if it works, great, use that. And then, let it go when it stops working, or keep on using it. There's so many techniques out there. There's so many different people teaching that if it works for you, absolutely use it. If not, then don't. What I would say, though, however, is that we do want to be able to create and maintain those resonances outside of those exercises. So when you're using the exercise, use it, be aware of what's resonating, and then try to adopt it in your standard phonations, and see if you can truncate the process so that you're not reliant on the exercise, the silly word exercise. Be Nasty 223. Hey there, I saw your video about singing through and around the break as a baritone. I was hoping you could talk some more about the best ways to practice that. A very good question. Truthfully, much of what we've been talking about relates to that. The teaching on the channel, as it relates to airflow, vowel alignment, resonances, and vowel modifications, these are all parts of the puzzle. All of these things work together to create these seamless transitions that go all throughout the various ranges of our voices. It is in the practice and cultivation of release of the vocal fold and the cultivation of ever more well-suspended engagement. I'm not saying that it's really, really hard, but that it's incredibly, I think the word I'm looking for is pernicious. Like, it's very persistent, and it's very appropriate and responsive to the vocal fold as it moves throughout the ranges of our voice. All of these things work together. So when you look at the channel, you've got regular warm-ups, you've got warm-ups that say full range. Those cross the secondo passaggio. If you can't do that, look in the I think it's high notes. There's a high notes playlist, And there you'll find the techniques for how to learn to sing over the secondo passaggio. And then these things work together. The quick tips are discussions of the techniques that are incorporated into the videos. I might suggest too, I made a guidebook that will help you put all this stuff together, and it's available at jeffrolka.com. It's very inexpensive, and you can search it in a myriad of ways to put together workflows that can help you do that, and that's what it's for. At Striker, at JC's Radiant Ray. Also, a quick update with the mixed voice stuff I emailed you about. I've been trying it with a more neutral posture, and it's a bit harder to get the sound, but I'm working on it. Yeah, I was really concerned about that, because, I mean, tension in the rear of the neck can just have an impact on so many different aspects of our phonation. So definitely try more neutral posture there. Striker Kane at me, any advice in breath control for woodwind players and singers? Well, I mean, if you've most vocalists have had more developed concepts of airflow and engagement than any woodwind instructor I have ever had. Even my teacher at university, which I stutter to say because I have a certain amount of reverence for him. But yeah, the singers are where the technique's at, and I would just soak up as much of it as you can. I mean, you're well aware of arpeggio, and I don't see any reason why that could not be applied to woodwind playing as well. As a saxophone player myself, certainly my breath control and engagement has only gotten better since I've been a singer for about that long too, and studied vocals that long as well. But I didn't really come into arpeggio until much later. Altug, is losing adduction through the break related to vocal cords not being strong or high air pressure? How to fix it? Typically imbalance or habit. So you got a singer who is habitually allowed the vocal folds to abduct, A-B-D-U-C-T, whatever. So the habit of doing it, and then if they're not doing that, then it's an imbalance in either. If they're not getting into falsetto tone production, then they're typically squeezing, and from there, you just have to begin to increase the airflow and get them to cultivate a bit more release of the vocal fold, which in some respects is even more difficult than one who has been abducting the vocal fold. Zoroku, how do you sing from the stomach? That's kind of old school breathing technique. I would really take a look at my arpeggio breathing video if you want to get into a discussion of breath, because the notion of sticking the stomach out and sucking it back in, I can only speculate on why that became a popular way of teaching breathing, but I do not agree with it in any way. And please don't take my word for it, but read up on arpeggio and check out my video on arpeggio. Check out Shirley Emmons' incredibly succinct and easily digestible webpage on arpeggio, and see what you think. Thank you, Striker. Yeah, the diaphragmatic breathing is good too. Okay, that's cool. At Sandra, one of our sequencer friends posted an awesome video about the human breathing apparatus. It was very illuminating. Join and check it out. Very cool. JC's Radiant Ray at me. We sopranos might appreciate more coach. Yes, I know. I have not done one of those in some time, and I promise you it will happen. Sandra, yeah, it's gonna happen. Striker Kane, daylight saving was my guess. Yeah. Thank you, Altug. I really appreciate that. JC's Ray et al. And Greg et al. Next week, the event will also be an hour later from a USA perspective. Agreed. That's right. Yes. Yes, indeed. Thank you for mentioning that, JC's Radiant Ray. Altug at Striker. Angel Daniels. Yes, unfortunately, most venues, sound systems, monitors, etc. aren't that great. You are absolutely right. I have trouble hearing. Any suggestions for a good in-ear device? Anything is better than nothing. basically. I would go for whatever your budget can, um, whatever your budget can handle. Basically, if this is your main gig, which it sounds like, I mean, if you're doing this 6 days a week, 4 shows a night, like this is what you do, um, then I would save money and get a wired system instead of a wireless system because you're sitting at the piano or guitar. I think it was piano. So get a wired system since you're not moving around anyways. The wired systems typically have a little control box that you can have really close by. So if it's not quite right, you can fix it on the fly, which it almost certainly will change throughout the gig. Um, but I might spend a little bit extra money on custom molded earpieces so that you get a really, really comfortable fit. The foam ones are cool. The hard plastic ones that squish and go in, I find very uncomfortable. Um, and with the amount of playing you're doing, you save up and spend a little bit of cash on the custom molds. One other thing is set up an area mic. So take like it doesn't have to be anything expensive like an SM57 or whatever, and set it out like somewhere just in your general vicinity, and just put a little bbit of that in your cans too, so you have a little bit of ambiance around you, so that way if people are talking to you or making requests, you'll still be able to hear them, because with the in-ears in, you will largely be sealed off, and having a little area mic to bring just an appropriate amount of ambiance, I think will enhance your overall experience. That's I was in a cover band for a while. Well, I've been in a variety of bands over my life, but this one in particular I'm thinking of, we used to do that, and it was so much fun. It changed these kind of sluggish gigs into really, really fun times. Capone's just hanging around. You're always welcome, Capone. It's great to have you here. Robert Tatler, Jeff, big fan of your warm-ups. Thank you. Got a question. Do you have any tips for improving lung capacity? Isn't for me, for my girlfriend who has asthma. Okay, that's a different matter altogether. Certainly, her doctor would be more appropriate to chime in on her overall capacity. I can't speak to that aspect of it. But the fact of the matter is we're born with what we were born with. You got what you got. And if you are wanting to increase the length of phrases, look more towards efficiency of breath management and efficiency of phonation. So what that means is using the appropriate amount of airflow for where you are in your range, and having really excellent suspension and engagement such that the Apagio breathing system would provide. So I would look into Apagio, and I would assess the overall efficiency of my phonation, as in how our vowels are aligned. Thank you, Giuseppe. You're very welcome. Nathaniel Schwarzenberg is back. I've been really down lately because my voice is not very good. I'm sorry to hear that. Acid reflux. I'm very sorry to hear that. Diagnosed with it after a stroboscopy. I'm glad that you had that done. I'm glad that you found that out. At least you know, and you can work with what you got there. Striker at Robert. Martin L. Good luck with that, Nathan. Be patient. I second that. Today, how long does it take to erase the break? Varies widely. It might take you 4 weeks. It might take you 4 years. And I've seen everything in between. I have been blown away recently by people who have been using... I wouldn't say this if it wasn't said to me, but have been just using, have been using what's on the channel, and have, I'm utterly speechless and humbled by what they have done. It has been absolutely incredible, and their break is either not noticeable at all or only barely noticeable, and it's incredible. So, it comes down to your work ethic and your attention to detail, really. And I mean, without knowing your voice, I don't know what you've got going on specifically. So, Striker Kane at Robert. Today, does erasing the break give you a more chestier mix? It can, yes. That's usually what we're going for. Johnny Lipstick, I just really wanted to say thank you because it's very difficult to get teachers where I live. Countryside of Costa Rica, you're very, very welcome. Thank you. Johnny Lipstick, if you ever come, let me know so I can help you with your visit. I will do that. Thank you very, very much. I will absolutely do that. Nathaniel, hey Martin, thank you, I will. Nathaniel, has anyone here experienced acid reflux? You know, Nathaniel, I'm about to wrap this up, and I think the chat will end once I do. But you might, if you use Facebook, join us at Sequencer, because we haven't seen anything like that I recall. And I would love to open up some discussions about, you know, these things that we deal with. Some of us deal with it all the time. Some of us deal with it from time to time. And it would be great to have that thread running in Sequencer as well. Trust. Hello from Italy. I'm Flavio. Trust 19681. Thank you for joining us. Welcome. I will remember that you are Flavio, and I'll probably say that I'll address you that way in the future if that's all right. Your baritone curse. David Whittle, first time visit. Welcome, David Whittle. We are about to wrap things up, but this will play in its entirety as soon as I terminate it. So you can go back and see what we were talking about. We talked about a lot of stuff today. These have been so much fun. Thank you all, by the way. It's really, really, really fun stuff. And yeah, I am gonna say have a wonderful, wonderful day, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your questions. Thanks for everything. Really, really great. If I had 2 tips for an aspiring tenor, what would they be? Be yourself and focus on your breathing. That's what I would do. Yes, you remembered me. Great. Excellent, Flavio. All right, everybody. Have a great rest of your week. I'll see you in the comments, or I'll see you here next week, I hope. Take really good care of your voices. Enjoy singing. And we'll see you again. Bye. I'll see you in the comments, or I'll see you here next week, I hope. Take really good care of your voices. Enjoy singing. And we'll see you again.